welcome, Randy Higgins, and thank you
Thank you.
for taking the time to talk to Louisville Makes Games about your game. Uh, I'll
Yeah, thanks
just
for thanks for having me.
I'll just give a quick spiel about Louisville Makes Games. We're a nonprofit uh, dedicated to supporting game developers in Louisville and the surrounding area. Um, So we try to do that in a variety of ways. We have a co-working space called Warp Zone Louisville, which I am in currently. Um, that's sort of our core project, is providing that space for people to come and work. Um, and Other things we do are host events and workshops and game exhibitions and game jams and stuff. So yeah, uh, we found out about your game, Randy, through Aaron, who started coming around a few months ago, maybe even close to a year ago.
Yeah, I think
Um,
it might have been a year ago. I don't
yeah,
know.
so uh, you've been a valuable member of the community for a while, and appreciate that, Aaron.
No, thanks.
So um, yeah, I guess we'll dive into Adventure to Fate. Randy, I kind of wanted to talk about the game, its accessibility features, and its music. So like those two sort of major topics. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, so I guess a little bit about the game. It's actually a series of games. These Adventure to Fate games I've been making for about 12 to 13 years now. Um, Really, I got into iOS development pretty early, along in the iPhone stage. So I was just back then making some apps and stuff. And I decided, I wanted to make a game. Um, my dream game, a lot of people call it, or whatever, that kind of slowly evolved into what it is now. So yeah, I made that back then. And when I initially made the game, this is a turn-based game, turn-based RPG, I should say. So yeah, I made that game back then. It was somewhat well received back then. I was hanging out a lot on the Touch Arcade forums back then. It was a big iPhone gaming forum hub. It was pretty popular. But yeah, I was hanging around then. I decided to make that game. It took me about a year or so to make, writing the game engine itself within Xcode Objectives using Objective-C. So it's like within the Apple development environment. When I initially made this game, like Unity and Unreal and all those game makers, they were around, but they weren't really that popular and people didn't use them that often. The cross compatibility wasn't there. So yeah, you had to write your own engine back then, and that's what I did. And my game's a simple, text-based, turn-based game, so it wasn't too crazy to write my own engine for, but little did I know writing my own engine within like the Mac development environment would allow me to have full control over accessibility options. So because I was using native elements, the game is it's really just a bunch of buttons and text to move around. There's not really any animation. I just use timers to switch the images and stuff. So it's a very simple game, but because I wrote it that way, because I didn't know any better and because there weren't, game engines out there to help me make a 3D game or something like that, I took that approach and that's what allows me to have full control over the accessibility because I'm literally building um, on the standard controls for the iPhone, which VoiceOver is built for. So it gives me a huge advantage Now I know Unity and Godot and some of the other ones they have accessibility options, but I last I checked, the pure ability that I have using the standard controls is a lot better than what it offers. Uh, but yeah, so I built this game and did okay. And somebody from audiogames.net reached out, and that was a blind gaming forum where it was a small group of people at that time, and they would just try every game they could. They would just download these games in hopes that they could figure them out and that while playing them blind, basically. So really a monumental task. But yeah, so one of them contacted me and said, "Hey, we can kind of play your game. Can you make these changes?" And I didn't even know anything about accessibility back then. It wasn't big or anything along those lines, but I was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." So I made those changes, and from then on, I started incorporating more and more focus on accessibility to coming to these last three releases. That's like my main focus and core is get the accessibility right and then build the game around it. So that's kind of a long, short story of how Adventure to Fate came to be, I guess, and where it's at.
It's really interesting to hear that it's native, um, and you're not using an engine like Unity or Godot. So I can see how that approach lets you more directly access the accessibility um, features on various Apple devices. So,
Hmm.
um, uh, do you uh, you said you started this a while back.
Yeah.
Uh, is it your full-time gig or like
So yeah.
how do you measure success, I guess, with this project?
Yeah, so initially, like I said, before I wrote this game, I had been doing apps, just general sports apps and some education apps on the App Store. Back then, you could fully support yourself. The market was pretty fresh. I got in early. I had one of the first stat trackers, so you could track your own baseball stats. I had one of the first multiple choice quiz makers, which sounds simple, right? But there was nothing out there
Yeah,
otherwise. Now you got Quizlet and all those other ones. So I really had an early foot in the door. So that allowed me to, yeah, do it full time and make the game full time. Now, the game never brought in full time money until even now it really doesn't. You know,
yeah,
I gauge a good day, by $100 in sales a day, which is, pretty good, but I have support outside of the game, so
yeah.
yeah, it's hard to measure success on it, but I've been on and off full time, part time on it. I haven't been making the series over the whole 13 years. I did it full time for like the first three releases, the first 3 or 4 years, because I had the other apps that were kind of keeping me afloat. And then I went back into the workforce and did some tech and sales jobs. And then about 2 years ago, when I released Lost Island, I had been laid off, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try to make this work full time again. Um, Hoping that my other apps would kind of come back and keep me afloat. But yeah, I mean the game market's it's tough, especially when I only have one platform. Like I don't have Steam. I don't release on Steam. I don't even release on Android, so I'm really hoping that Apple can keep me afloat all the way. And yeah, I mean like I said, probably I'm happy with making $100 a day on the App Store. That's a successful day. Let's put it that way, I guess. So, yeah.
Cool. So can you talk a little bit about the specific accessibility features in the game? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, Apple has a voice feature called VoiceOver it's basically a screen reader with some other features. And what it does is it natively reads like text box and buttons uh, on your screen when they're created, natively for the most part. Um, it has trouble working with a lot of games because a lot of games are really images instead of a pure text format. So that's why there's not a ton. And then, yeah, I mean, a lot of games focus on, visual reaction. Their action games where a text turn-based game like mine does not, there's not any action. You take your turn, you figure out the situation, and then they take their turn type thing. So, yeah, reading the native controls really does help. However, there's a lot of things, but a couple major things that you have to focus on is how you arrange the elements in the game from top to bottom, right to left, because when a voiceover user uses voiceover, they swipe left to right to go to different objects on the screen. So you have to make sure that, a player's intelligence stats aren't, halfway in between what their pet armor is, you know. Uh, you want to make sure everything's reading in the right order. And then I work a lot with timers in there too, because I have to wait for an action to get done. And then the game will actually uh, read dialogue as well, even if the player isn't selecting a button at certain cases or certain times, after you defeat an enemy, you cue the audio of the death, you change the music, and then these other elements display. You maybe read off something along the lines of you won. So yeah, there's a lot of timer work in there too, where I have it read different elements. And then another thing there's another big part is when you're playing the game, a single tap is to read the element, a double tap is to select it.
Yeah, I
So you
noticed
can,
that.
yeah, yeah. So you can kind of use that to your advantage. So a lot of the times I'll single tap to not only let them know what button they're on, but for example, I use the directional pad, and the way that the game's laid out is you're on a 25 room grid, starting with 0 on the top left, going to 4, and then the row down starts at 5. So you got a 5 by 5 grid on there. So I'll tell the player where they're located, and then if they tap the north button once, it'll say, you're tapping the north button, but it'll look into that room. It'll say, this is what's in this room. There's a monster here, or there's a shrine here, or there's some loot here. And then when they tap the east, it tells them what's in the room to the east. And then when they want to commit, they'll double tap. So a lot of like assigning information to the elements. And then there's, actually having the elements action too. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of an idea of the accessibility side. And then another thing is like, I have to build this whole game to at least somewhat look good for the visual too.
Hmm.
So I have two UIs. If you play the game in accessibility mode, like I said, you'll notice some of the UI elements are shifted and in weird places. That's because I want them to read right. So it is kind of fun because I have to figure out, how to solve a problem in two different ways. So yeah.
So the accessibility features, it sounds like that um, informs the game design. Um,
Mhm.
uh, do you think that the game design informs some of the accessibility that you offer? Um, how does that interplay? Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess the way I develop too is I try to find a happy medium. where I really nowadays I do focus on, okay, accessibility needs to work first, and then I'm going to design the visual player's experience around that. So yeah, I mean, I think the accessibility does determine the design because like if I can't do the accessibility, then I'm not going to do it at all. And there's some problems like people complain kind of about the inventory system sometimes or certain aspects how things are lined up. Why can't you do it that way? And yeah, I mean, I have to make a choice at some points. And yeah, at this
Yeah.
point, making sure it's accessible first um, is a priority there. So yeah.
Do you I assume you test your game with uh people who use those accessibility features. Um,
Mhm.
what's the process like for soliciting their feedback and incorporating it?
Yeah, so I mean, actually on my Discord, I would say 95% of my testers are voiceover testers. That use the accessibility side. They are excited to be helping on the project. I take tons of input, um, you know, for everything from the accessibility to the actual mechanic design and stuff like that. So it's really almost kind of like we are, a team here working towards it because yeah, they know the flow and how it's used a lot better than me because they use it every day. I'm really good with it now because I use it for testing every day. I have one phone that I test with
Yeah.
accessibility wise and one on just visual. But yeah, I mean they do determine a lot of how the game turns out. And yeah, I mean they're just really excited to be a part of the project because there's not really anything like this out accessibility wise. I mean, there are mods for certain games and stuff, and things are getting way better. But yeah, I think people are excited to be part of the project and stuff. So
For sure.
Your game has won awards. Um,
I was about to beat you to that, yeah, because I was gonna shout you out, Randall. Like if you, I it's always tough to like talk about your own awards, so I wanted to make sure that that was known because it's a big deal, right? Well, so it wasn't just for dungeons; it was also for Core Quest, right?
yeah. So I actually released two games this year, and both of them, I guess they combined both of the entries for one overall game entry. So yeah, I mean, both of them won the core quest. Everything before dungeons, just to kind of give you a rundown of how the games are set up. I probably should have done this initially, but there's been there's been seven games in the series. And there's been kind of three types of games. We got the story based. You're going to explore the whole realm, you know. There might be inside the realm, there might be a forest area, a dungeon area, but you're gonna follow through and you're gonna do the whole story. You're gonna get stronger as you go. You're gonna fight bosses, stuff like that. A lot of games follow that. Um, and then because of an accessibility request, I ended up making the second type of game, which is more of just a battle arena. So you just go to the middle of the game. It tells you what enemies you're going to fight, who progressively get harder as the matches go, and then you battle them. I think this is popular because not only are a lot of the game's users blind, but sometimes some of them just want something easy to pick up and play. They don't want to have to go around and explore, but they enjoy the combat system, which I totally agree with. And so I made a free game where, yeah, you're just going and you're just doing the battles. It's a lot more simplified. You're not exploring the world, things like that. So those were the two games I initially made, and then this most recent release, which has been hugely, not hugely, but more popular than the previous ones, both with the accessibility and the visual community, is Dungeons. And this is more of a classic roguelike dungeon crawler where your every floor is different every time, the enemies are different. We got randomized prefixes, so it's a lot more get into the action. You lose, okay, we'll restart. So just to, yeah, kind of give you an idea of how the games are set up. But yeah, so the most recent one, Dungeons and Core, got nominated for the Golden Apple Awards that Apple Viz gives out, and they're another blind, visually impaired, sometimes hearing impaired form that focuses on iOS games and iOS apps. So I've been a member there for a long time, as well as audiogames.net, and they do these yearly awards. And yeah, I was lucky to be nominated and to win the game of the year. I think I was third place for developer of the year, and then they give out like a lifetime achievement award. They give it a lifetime achievement award for accessibility games, and I was a second runner up for that. So it was really cool.
Super
All
cool.
right. Um, what advice would you give to game developers who are interested in accessibility, adding those kinds of things to their game?
Yeah, I mean, uh, yeah, you could, yeah, look at it two ways like that. Like, I have this game out and I want to add accessibility to it. I think the first thing you would do is look at your competitors if they are implementing any accessibility features or anything like that. See how you can also do that. But also maybe go out to some of these forums to AppleVis, who I should mention too. People might be a little bit more familiar. They were kind of merged with Be My Eyes, an app that allows you to assist. It's a hugely popular app. I think it won some Apple awards. Um, but yeah, it allows you to perform a task for a blind person or visually impaired person in need. So they just give you a video chat. I've done a couple of them, and they'll just be like, "Hey, can you read this?" or something along those lines. You help them out like that. So they're actually merged with Apple Viz. So more people might know them by, might know the company by that. But yeah, and then or go out to audiogames.net. They have great communities. And like I said, like how else can you get like 50 committed testers to play your game? Like these are dedicated people that want to like game and get in it. So yeah, go out to those forums and ask like, hey, what can I change about my game? Or shoot, if you're looking for a project, like what games are you guys wanting to play, So that's how I would approach it.
Okay. Fantastic advice. And uh, thanks for detailing the history and design of your game. Um, your game has some great music in it. Um, so
Mm.
I'll put a question to you first, Randy, and then maybe we can switch over to Aaron. But um, um, I guess when you first started developing the game, where did you see the music? What kind of music did it have, and when did you start thinking about professional music?
Yeah, so initially when I made the game, as you guys can see, the visuals are still pixel, but the music back then was very like 8-bit to match the pixel a lot more. And back then, I mean, I think what I did, because even back then, like Game Dev Marketplace, like a lot of those marketplaces weren't around either. So um, I think I did find I purchased some asset music, but it was pretty sparse back then. And then for the second game, I used a friend's brother who did, okay. And then since up until I worked with Aaron, it was just a matter of, yeah, just getting a bunch of asset packs of music and finding what I thought fit, which wasn't um, always the greatest because you're kind of constrained. So yeah, I mean, uh, once I started using Aaron and Lost Island, that's when the game I think kind of turned a corner and started shifting because again, if you're visually impaired or blind, the music is a huge, huge deal, and it's something I had kind of been uh I did put focus on it, but not as much, and I should have earlier. So yeah, I mean that's kind of give you an idea. So about when I started doing this full time again about 2 years ago, started working with Aaron. Maybe he can tell the story. It's pretty interesting of how we met.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can compare notes on like what actually happened because like my memory is a little fuzzy, but like see how close I am to this. From my side of things, I remember it started when I was about to lay down for a nap. And so I was like, I want to play a video game. So I downloaded, I can't remember which one of your games I downloaded first. Um, it might have been Battle Arena, and maybe that was the one that had a bug in it or something. There was some kind of issue, and I reached out to you just to ask for a refund. And somehow I just remember the way you responded. I'm like, oh wow, this guy is so nice. And then somehow we got into a conversation. I don't remember what the conversation was about. And then it turned into, hey man, do you ever need music for your? And then here we are. Like that's all I remember. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was pretty much the gist of it. And this is a good tip for developers, like, look, nobody wants somebody emailing them for a refund, but you got to turn that into an opportunity and like, okay, what was wrong? Like, how can I fix it? And like, kind of go from there. And I'm glad that that's what I try to do because I ended up with, working together. So yeah.
Right. And then on my end, it's like if you're going to email somebody for a refund, be polite, because it gets you far.
Yeah.
I can imagine what would happen if it was like another disgruntled customer and like, we probably wouldn't be sitting here, So,
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so uh, Aaron, do you want to talk a little bit about the creative process that you started with when you began working on the music?
sure. Which game would you like me to talk about first? Because I feel like there's been kind of a progression where Lost Island was definitely we're just meeting, we're feeling each other out. I'm trying things. I don't know exactly what the direction is yet, and then up until now with Dungeons, it's become more of like this really fully realized direction of like, oh, okay, here's how I want the instrumentation, here's how I want everything to go, and you know, as Randall said, like things kind of turned a corner when we start working together on Lost Island. I feel like I feel like we've been kind of like passing the ball back and forth to each other with that. As far as like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Randall, but like I feel like anytime I would deliver something to you, then you would implement it, and then I would see the work that you were doing based off that, and seeing what you were doing made me want to step things up. And then like hearing feedback from the community definitely made me want to step things up. And then I feel like I don't know if I'm overstepping or if I'm like out of left field with this, but it seemed like that just kind of kept feeding back and forth and making the game that what it is right now. I think it's just been a really cool, um, you know, cyclical work relationship where things have just kind of like, all right, let's see if we can take it this far. And that's at least been my mindset on things of like, my motivations have been even more so because it's visually impaired and blind gamers predominantly. So much of this relies on the imagination, and that is something that like I resonate with as a gamer just because I grew up with the old school NES games where you had to use your imagination because the graphics weren't exactly like the most spectacular thing, especially with RPGs. Even with the first Final Fantasy, visually that would probably be like the best looking game, but even still, you had to use your imagination at times, which I really, really found a lot of value in. I don't know if other people might complain about that, but I always found that to be a really cool thing as far as like a creative exercise. Like you just, it really is. So the music is also a component of that. It just enhances that imaginative aspect. So sorry, this is a long-winded way of me trying to say that my goal with the music is to world build and create as much of a picture in the mind of the gamer as I can, because music is super visual. Like if you're if you're writing about a specific emotion, right, it's gonna trigger something in your brain. So that's kind of my goal with it. Is like, I will ask Randall any kind of detail about any kind of lore around the game. Like, what's Randall. I know I've told this to you like privately, but when we would talk about like inventory and how there'd be all these like cool little like bits of story, kind of like they were almost subliminal bits of story. They weren't fully descriptive, but they were so imaginative that it gives this greater scope of the story that doesn't actually get told. Like I love that stuff. Like I'm super into that stuff because it just lets the mind kind of wander, and it's so subjective and super cool. Anyway, sorry, ADD's kicking in. You were saying the process, right? Did I answer any of
Yeah.
that yet?
Yeah, you're getting there.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, you started to touch on like how the inventory items um, provided a little bit of hints at the lore,
Mm-hmm.
and so you kind of uh, maybe that added some ornamentation to your music. Is that fair to say?
I mean, it gave me an idea about like the environment for sure. An environment is like
Yeah.
super super important for me when I'm writing for this particular style of music. I love writing to some kind of imagery, so we could definitely talk more about that right after this break.
Yeah.
But yeah, like environment is huge for me, imagery and anything like that, and it definitely played a part. Like story is huge for me. I mean, that's why I play RPGs. Like in general, like I'm huge on the story and the music, obviously. But like story above everything. Like even if the gameplay has like holes in certain games, whatever. Like if the story is strong, I'm like, yes, I'm there. So that's where I come from with that. Yeah, so I believe so. The initial question was, what is the process essentially, right? Um, and environment definitely plays a part in the process. It doesn't. There's no real set like start and finish. Like I do this every single time type of thing. It has become more refined as time goes on, but every environment is different. So therefore, every song or score or whatever you want to call it is going to be different as well. But initially, how it goes is, I'll sit down with Randall like we did today, right? We had a meeting today. We discussed what things, how things want to go for the next batch of songs. And I will ask a series of questions besides the basics of like, track length and moods and all that sort of thing, or any kind of game references, any type of like inspirations that come to mind, anything like that. That's all good for me to know. And from there, I will just. The only thing that I always do first is I will sit over there or over there with the acoustic guitar first thing in the morning with coffee and just in my happy place and just start like playing, just coming up with ideas, just recording everything, trapping little ideas. The main thing that I try to get down first is just a short little motif of some sort, some kind of little melody, something that's like gives me enough to be like, ooh, that's worth exploring and developing, and that could maybe be a theme. Maybe that'll be a theme for the environment. In other cases, maybe it's a character theme. Who knows? But like some kind of hummable melody, something that's like just interesting enough for me to be like, I need to find out more about this. So that's where it starts. As far as like the rest of the process, I mean, I document the process all the time, so it tends to change. But if anybody wants to see that, it's I got a bunch of stuff on YouTube on my channel to if you want to see like how I take an idea and then develop it into a piece like this. Um, it's the only thing that I can say regarding the process is that it's subject to change all the time. I like I said, regarding environment, if I have a picture, that will give me so much to go on. Like, for example, if it's a forest theme, be like, great, that's going to help me determine instrumentation. It's going to help me determine what tonality I'm going to be using. Maybe it's going to be a Dorian thing. I want something that sounds very calm and maybe melancholy, things like that. Maybe if it's a piece that requires something that's more whimsical, okay, great. I'm gonna use the Lydian mode. I'm gonna be, getting silly with that. Yeah. So I hope that answers things.
Yeah. Uh, Randy, does the music that Aaron make for your game, um, I'm guessing you ask for certain things and Aaron tries to deliver those things, but does Aaron's music ever inform decisions about your approach to the storytelling or the game design?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it has I think it has some impact on it. What I like to do is, even if the song isn't completely finished, I will try to get that in as early as possible for the testers so they can feel it out, you know. And I try to get it in there too while I'm still building. Right now, to give you an example, I'm doing uh, dungeons within the dungeons game, but there are 10 floors, you know, so I'll try to get that in as soon as possible. And then, yeah, I mean, I joke with Aaron, you know, I listen to his music more than any artist that I listen to because
Yeah,
I'm constantly testing my game and his songs are constantly playing, you know, and I'd be like, you know,
For better
if
or
I'm
worse.
still humming it after a month, then it's good, you
yeah,
know. So,
Wow.
yeah, definitely. In what exact way? I don't know, you know, but
sure.
I always have it going and I try to get it in as early as possible. And, you know, usually he always nails it, but and usually it ends up staying the same. But, you know, if for some reason I'm listening to it, I'll be like, hey, could we do a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that? So it's definitely a process that, you know, that evolves. Yeah, always.
Um, so why metal? And maybe that's the question for both of you.
Uh, I think we kind of both just like the same kind of music. We both kind of, I mean, I like, you know, progressive metal. He seems like a fan too. And that's what even, you know, before I was working with him, that's what I, you know, listen to when I'm working, you know. So it kind of slowly evolved into that. I don't think it started like that. Maybe in Lost Island, I was like, let's get this because in Lost Island 2, I'm still using, he came on maybe during while the project had already been started, I think.
Hmm.
And so it is some of my hand-picked music along with his in there. So I was trying to get him to kind of match that. And then in Core Quest and Dungeons, which are the most recent, I was like, yeah, fully take the reins and I want you to like I'll tell you the zone and I'll give you feedback, but like I want you to work your magic on it. So I'm very hands off with that. But yeah.
Yeah, to that, I have to just say, like Randall's probably been one of the easiest people to work with that I've ever worked with in my career. Like I've been freelancing for almost like 15 years at this point. Like, before getting into video game music, I lived another life, and I'm still living another life as just a session musician. So, I mean, that's definitely where the metal comes from. I'm an artist separately as well, and I've put out records, and it's all like I'm a metalhead. So, like, that's where it definitely comes from. But I started doing battle themes on Lost Island. And I understand, in the gaming community, a lot of typical battle theme music could be more orchestral, maybe like a lot of people are going for like a soundtrack thing, something really cinematic, um, which is totally cool, and I love that as well. But like, to me, it's like, if you were in a fight, what else but metal is gonna like get you psyched up to, like, just try to like chop that troglodyte's head off, with your broadsword or whatever. It's like, yeah, that just makes sense.
Yeah.
um it it doesn't necessarily make sense everywhere else. So, and then, it's been a really fun journey of like exploring how to, best accommodate these different environments, especially like overworld areas and all that, where things have to be more subtle or more ominous, more tense, less in your face. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, and my favorite thing, I think, like the most like gratifying thing is to read the response from the people on Discord, where they like their reaction is like of shock, like when they get into a fight, because they're just not expecting, because like it gets intense, like, there's extreme metal in there, there's all kinds of stuff where it's just kind of like it's borderline inappropriate for the game in a sense, but at the same time it's kind of like it also makes total sense. I think. I don't know. I'm not the judge of it. I leave it up to everybody else to judge that. But yeah, it's the most fun a guy could have making
Um,
that music.
does do you take feedback about your music or about parts of your music from the community? Um,
Yes, I will. I will definitely like listen to any feedback. Like, hey, have you ever considered this? I mean, most of the time, the community doesn't really hear the music until it's done. But if there's ever a situation where they say like, "Hey, why don't you try this?" Like, I'll definitely keep it in mind. I mean, being like a session musician, like, you're trained to receive feedback and just be like, okay, like, so I'm very used to that anyway, just working with other clients and whatnot. I don't know if there's been a lot of that kind of feedback though. I don't know. Have you noticed that at all, Randall? I'm not sure.
I mean, not really, but yeah, I mean, usually a handful of testers gets a little early. And yeah, I mean, I don't really think uh, we've had too much feedback about where this can change. They're more excited about where it's going and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, every once in a while, um, it's really rare that I'll even give him feedback where it's like, oh, can we do this different? I can remember the last time I said it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, um, thank you, by the way. I take that as a compliment. The What I will say regarding feedback from the community is, like, I've gone on a couple of occasions and just kind of reached out to the community just to ask them like, hey, what can I do to improve your experience, from a sonic aspect. I didn't do any of the sound design on this game though, so that was the feedback that I received. It was like, hey, we would love it if you were able to do this with implementing different sounds to convey different, like, it's really cool things that I would have thought about. Like, I think specifically there was one gamer that was saying, in the desert area, if you could make the footsteps sound like you're walking on sand, whereas, in another area, it'll sound like, reverbed out in the dungeon, stuff like that. Things that I would never think about. Like, I just wouldn't ever consider that. And it's like, that's really cool because it's just that much more immersive. Now, putting that together and implementing it is probably a different scenario because I haven't done that. And Randall, that's your territory, but it's really cool. It's just really cool feedback to receive, and I've noticed. I mean, like you were talking about, Randall, like just the feedback that everybody gives on the features and accessibility and just how things go. Like people are very vocal in the group, and it's pretty cool. There's a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, speaking of that, you just recently released a pretty major update. Um, and how's that going? And what's next?
Yeah, so I try to uh I've gone are the days of releasing a game and then being like it's done, time to move to the next project,
Yeah.
which is fine, but I'm actually still even updating the previous game or two games before this. So like this game came with a ton of quality of life features over the previous core game. Things like prefixed items, auto equip. Yes, auto equip should be in everything by now, but with the accessibility, it was a really tough problem to solve, at least for me. But yeah, I ended up getting that. So my month has been split between going back and updating the previous game, the core quest that was released about a year ago now. I took all the top quality of life features, did that. And then now I moved back to dungeons, where I kind of expanded the three current dungeons. I tried to add as much depth as I could. I added some more bosses, more loot, more prefixes, more skills, um, while fixing a ton of bugs and stuff too. So I wanted to kind of get everything good and in order, because the next update I'm going to be doing is adding another dungeon in there. I'm going to be working on the volcano dungeon. So that's kind of how I have to take it as an indie dev. It's really like, okay, I'll put out this update. I can't take too long in between. And then the next this update, I'll put out a content update. And then the next update's a little bit more minor, usually fixes and adjusts some of those things that were in the content update, as well as a much smaller one. And then I'll go back to like a big one of a dungeon or a class or something like that. So I've learned over time, like, to try to keep the updates as small as possible. I mean, everybody wants to have this grand expansion that you can like sell, that you can sell this big update, but it's really and more, realistically better for the players in the community and me as a developer if I just do these small updates, because then I can figure out what bugs need to be fixed and the players get the content quicker, So that's kind of where I'm at with it. But yeah, this most recent one was, yeah, a lot of depth to the actual dungeons to kind of hold people over and to fix, any bugs that I knew of until this next volcano dungeon comes out.
All right. And Aaron, what can we look forward to in the soundtrack?
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about that today. There's gonna be what four new tracks, right? Which I'm gonna be starting on as of tomorrow. So I'll be over there with my guitar and my coffee, doing step one, and hopefully that will be fruitful. We'll see how that goes. And yeah, I'm going to be documenting everything as usual. So if anybody wants to follow along, they can jump on my channel and check that out. I like to share that to the Discord as well. So if you want to just jump over on the Adventure to Fate Discord, you can do that as well. And yeah, I'm really excited to getting started with it. It's super fun, and yeah, it's a really cool community to be involved with. I was telling Randall this today too. It's like doing music for a living is fulfilling on so many levels already, but with the added, aspect of accessibility for the blind and visually impaired is just something I never expected getting involved with. I just never saw it, and interacting with this community now and just seeing how into it that they are and how appreciative they are of all of it. It's like I feel like I hear nothing but just nice things. Even if sometimes people are like brutally honest about something, it's never malicious. It's always just like super nice. So Yeah, it's just been incredibly fulfilling, and just yeah, I'm just really really excited to be a part of it.
All right. Randy and Aaron, did you all want to plug specific websites or social media?
AdventureToFate.com.
Yeah, yeah, that's the main site. It's set up right now just for the dungeons, but there's links to the previous games. So yeah, adventuretofate.com or search the App Store Adventure to Fate Dungeons. The update went well. The game's currently ranked 10th or 11th on role playing right now. So you might be able to find it on the top of the App Store charts too.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Randy, and Aaron, for joining me for this really interesting conversation about accessibility, game design, and music, and how all of those things come together to make Adventure to Fate, and make it so that it's an award-winning game. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having us too. I joined your guys' Discord too, so if anybody has questions or anything, let me know. And also, there is a blind and visually impaired game jam going on right now, online game jam. So if it's okay with you, I'll drop. I don't know if you guys share
Yeah.
game jams or whatnot. I'll go ahead and drop that in there too, so people can check it out and see what it's all about.